very delighted and privileged to be the publisher of From Storeroom to Boardroom, and I'm going to be hosting this evening. It's wonderful to have you all here for this launch event for the remarkable Babs Omotowa to celebrate the production today of the ebook edition of From Storeroom to Boardroom, How Integrity and Courage Shape Global Business. And we're very much looking forward to your company over the next hour or so. I'm going to begin by inviting Pastor Mark to open the evening with a prayer. Over to you, Pastor Mark.
Good evening, everyone, and what a great joy this evening to come together to together launch my brother's book and colleague as well. Lord, we pray. So, if you don't mind, we'll bow our heads in prayer. Father, Lord, we thank you so much. What a great joy, what a great opportunity, what a great privilege to be alive, to be well, and what a great privilege also tonight to come together as we read our Lord and hear about this great book. Lord, this book is written by your son. You've blessed him so much. You've helped him so much in life, and he's paused now to reflect on his journey through life, and he's put it down on paper so that he obviously can be reflect and reflect on the lessons, but also he's putting it all down together so it can be a gift to all, as many as we read it. It's also a book that is designed to speak, and some thoughts into some burning issues in different parts of the world and in the corporate world. Lord, here tonight, oh Lord, I'm thanking you first for him, oh Lord, and for his family. Oh Lord, and everyone that treasures that treasures him, oh Lord, to say thank you for giving him the opportunity of a great career in a great company and through school and other phases of life. And now he enters another phase and is looking back, oh Lord. We commit this book into your hands, that this book, oh Lord, will be a blessing to everyone that will read it, that this book will change lives. This book will help direct those who are coming behind. And at the same time, this book will become a treasure, a reference point for those who are pondering about some of the issues of integrity and being able to make a difference in office, whether corporate office or governmental office. So we thank you tonight for this opportunity. We ask you, mighty God, to come and take control, enjoy tonight, and take all the glory in the name of Jesus. So we declare this wonderful ceremony open in the name of God the Father, name of God the Son, name of God the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Amen. What a great way to start. Thank you so much, Mark. That's wonderful. And we've got a couple of readings from the book itself this evening and messages from some very distinguished guests. Please do feel free, as you are doing. It's wonderful to see people posting in the chat. If we keep most people muted to avoid the background noise, that's great. But when we get to the questions and answers, there'll be an opportunity to unmute yourself and put your questions directly to Babs. So I would like to invite Hakeem Olagunju to take the virtual floor now to read the foreword. We had hoped that we would be joined tonight by the author of the foreword, General Dr. Yakubu Gowon, former head of state of Nigeria, of course, but sadly he has been unable to join us this evening, and we're very grateful to Hakeem for reading this in his place. So over to you, Hakeem. Are you there, and can you unmute yourself?
I forgot to unmute myself.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Alison. I have the honor of reading to you the foreword on the book by Mr. Babs Omotowa, From the Storeroom to the Boardroom, as written by General Dr. Yakubu Gowon, GCFR, former head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am delighted to be writing the foreword for this book on Babs Omotowa and leadership. What is the relationship between them? Let me ask the question. Are leaders born or are they made? It is not one or the other, but a combination. Natural abilities are a great start, but it also requires nurturing through education, experience, and coaching. The lesson learned from childhood, from parents, role models in faith, at school, and from vocations like farming enables the inculcation of core values that become beacons of light, guiding leaders in later life. The world has become a global village that has brought forth the need for the development of societies to bring people out of poverty for a more equal world. While governments remain accountable to citizens for the development of societies, corporate leaders do have a role to play in helping address big societal issues. Nigeria's journey to becoming a developed nation has been ongoing, beginning even before its independence in 1960. It includes partnership between governments and corporate businesses. One that holds a special place for me is the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas, NLNG, conceived during my tenure as head of state from 1966 to 1975. I visited the company in 2013 on Bab's invitation, and I was impressed with the progress made by the company and its leadership towards the vision. I am delighted that the collective effort since then has further led to the final investment decision on the company's growth aspirations, the Train 7 project. The authenticities of Bab's leadership at LNG and later at the Shell Global Headquarters in the Netherlands are a testimony to his core values of integrity and courage. This book provides excellent lessons for businesses and leaders and serves as an incisive view of the very challenges faced by the oil and gas industry and how core values can help make a difference. As we look towards an egalitarian world, and as businesses increasingly seek to be a force for good in the light of the lessons from the past, this book couldn't be more timely. It highlights how environmental, social, and governance issues belong on the corporate dashboard and how they can be addressed. It describes how developing relationships with personal and corporate integrity
Dear, we are losing you.
can make a difference, enabling someone to opportunities. I hope this is a place. So Yakubu Gowon, GCFR, former head of state of Nigeria, 1966 to 1975, chairperson, Organization of African Unity, 1973 to 1974. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's great to have that read. And I just think wonderful that he has so completely got the book. It made me so happy to read that. And now we're delighted to be joined this evening by four additional eminent guests, 2 in person and 2 by the magic of video. So let's start with the messages from the 2 guests who unfortunately couldn't be here in person, Anne Pickard and Pamela Watson. Anne Pickard is former senior executive of Mobil and Shell, non-executive director of Woodside Australia and KBR USA, Chief Executive Women, and previously at Westpac and Catalyst. And she was named as Fortune magazine's bravest woman in oil. Isn't that a great title? And if you'll just bear with me a moment, I'm going to try and share my screen so that you can see her message for us this evening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Anne Pickard. I'm sorry I can't be here with you today, so I thought I would send a message along. I retired a couple of years ago from Shell after 27 years in the oil and gas industry. I think I had a very successful career, but I can tell you I was never the smartest person in the room. So I attribute my success to leadership, and that's what I'm here to talk about. A few things about leaders. Good leaders make complex things simple. They have a vision. Good leaders have a strong moral compass. They know right from wrong, and they always do the right thing, even when that path is not easy. Good leaders attract strong talent and know how to nurture and develop that talent. And importantly, good leaders care about their people. Good leaders want people smarter than them in the teams, and they listen to them. Good leaders hold people accountable and don't allow them to become victims. At the same time, however, Good leaders try to remove obstacles and help smooth the path ahead. Lastly, and so very important, good leaders help build resiliency in their people and in their organization. We can't predict the future, as we well know, but we can help other people be better prepared for it, whatever it may hold. So when I reflect on these strengths, very few people come to mind that have them all. But one of them that does is Babs Omotowa. I first met Babs over 15 years ago. I needed someone to take over a very important position in Nigeria. Someone smart, someone with integrity, and someone with courage. When I asked around the Shell world who that might be, Babs' name was mentioned over and over again. So I asked him to come home, leave behind a comfortable European life to take over a very tough job. He didn't hesitate. Babs' early life experiences and family set the strong foundation for the leader he became. Career-wise, at Shell, he started at the bottom. And to use his words, he learned to listen to experienced people. He did this throughout his career, and often those people were junior to him. He rolled up his sleeves, he worked alongside of everyone, he learned the culture, and then he set out to make things better, simpler, more productive, and safer. He wasn't afraid to challenge tradition or senior people, and he brought a fresh perspective that always made things better. He set people up for success. He mentored and held people accountable. He built strong relationships, and people wanted to work for him. And that's probably the single best testimony you can say about a good leader. And he always did the right thing. That strong moral compass and endless integrity, even in very difficult circumstances, makes him a top leader. Not just a top African leader, but a top leader. And I'm pleased to call Babs a friend. This important book is an invaluable read. It's educational, but it's an easy read and it's pleasurable to read. So I hope you take the time to read it. I'm just sorry I can't be here with this launch of this very important book. I wish you good luck going forward, and I hope we have a lot of success together again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Lovely to hear from Anne. What a wonderful testimony. And I've got a similar comments from Pamela Watson, who's the author of Gibbous Moon over Lagos, Pursuing a Dream on Africa's Wild Side. Pamela is an Australian who lived in Nigeria for 10 years, was Australia's honorary consul and an entrepreneur who founded a consulting practice and social enterprise in Lagos. She also cycled alone across Africa. Here's her message for Babs. And again, just bear with me while I share the screen. I'm sorry, I'm sharing the wrong thing. I'm going to try that one more time. Here we go.
Hi, Bess. Hi, Alison. Hi, everybody from Perth in Western Australia. It's daylight here now, which it won't be at the time of this launch. And so I'm doing my comments while I'm wide awake and able to put a sentence together, hopefully. This is a fantastic, very interesting I love the fact that Africa is driving Africa's transition
We seem to have lost Pamela. I hope she will be able to join soon. We may have to try to improvise as we go along then. I think the next item after Pamela's video would have been interview with, firstly with Dr. Oke Enemela, former Minister for Trade and Investment in Nigeria. And shortly after that, will be with Mr. Clement Baye, one of the directors of the Nigerian Communications Commissions in Nigeria. But I will start first with Dr. Oke Enelama. Dr. Enelama, are you online?
I'm here.
Okay. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you, Babs. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very, very much. It would have been different person asking you the question, so some of it may look a bit awkward. The first question would have been, what's your description of Babson Omotowa in terms of any interactions you've had with him?
Thank you. So I assume I can take the question as asked and go on to share my, yes. Thank you. I mean, I met Babs when I was in public service, and I met him because we had a lot to do with Nigerian LNG. At the time, he was a managing director, and a lot of the export they had to go through the ministry I supervised. And one of the things that struck me about Babs is just the way he carried himself and the integrity and I would say calmness he brought to the job, and that got me curious. And I soon found out that we shared a lot in common. I liked the fact that he really wanted to see Nigerian LNG do what was right for the country, what was right for the company, and what was right for all the stakeholders. I mean, I worked with him on at least two things that I remember. One was when the National Assembly was trying to review the tax law around Nigerian LNG. And Babs was very concerned that this would actually be a deterrent to investment. But I like the way he went about it. He didn't go about it trying to, grease palms and, look for ways to cut corners. He made, like we say, his strong arguments why it was in the country's interest to respect the agreement we had reached with Nigerian LNG. And I must say, I agree with him. I found him quite compelling. So when we talk about Babs bringing together integrity, intellect, and also courage to take on the National Assembly, I think that is certainly true. The other thing that I respect about him is that, a lot of people, scrambled around the things they wanted from government. But I found that Babs was always methodical how he went about it. He certainly did not try to, take advantage of the system. So when he eventually left and he was replaced, and he stayed in touch, and I got a chance to read his book, I must say I agreed completely that every time you bring together those three qualities that he's been harping on: integrity, competence, and courage, you see interesting results. And there is no question that the track record he achieved in Nigerian LNG and Shell before then, shows what is possible in Nigeria. And honestly, Babs, I think you're a role model, and I'm glad you put down your experience in a book. Well done.
Thank you very, very much, Doctor. I appreciate the kind comments. The next question was a reflection of your reading of the book, what you found interesting about the book, if there was any particular ones that were of interest.
So I'll say three things very quickly. One is that I am very glad you wrote. I'm sure you've had the accusation, true or not, that we don't like to write and we get buried with our experiences and with our, so thank you for taking out the time to write. The second thing is that it's a very readable book. I'm sure for those that have read it, you will agree with me that it's an easy read. You can't actually drop it because it tells the story of a man. Because I knew Babs, I guess he made it even easier, made it more readable. For me, this wasn't fiction. This was non-fiction at its best. I could relate to the man, and it was informative for me because honestly, it's always good to understand what sort of environment and should I say, nurture, not just nature, that shaped people. And I could see, you know, the parental, the education, and all the other people that, you know, played a role one way or the other in shaping who Babs became. Because honestly, he does have, you know, character. He's a man of character without any shadow of doubt. And I have to say that, like, I liked that about him. And then, like I said, I like also the fact that the book was, you know, credible in the sense that, like, the things he talked about, if you've been in Nigeria or maybe in the oil industry or some other points of overlap, you will agree with me that, like, those things, you know, you could relate to them. And honestly, Babs did make a difference. And my own experience is that whenever people bring these qualities together, they do make a difference. One of the sad things for us really is why we don't have more examples. And I hope this book will encourage more people to accept this challenge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelema. And the last question, if I may, are there any insights from the book? And I think maybe you've touched on it a little bit, but are there any insights from the book that you think talks to leaders or in today's world that you think could be useful lessons for others as well?
I think it's just showing that, like, what you might call, you know, let me just call it leadership with integrity works. I mean, genuine leadership. One of the sad commentaries on, you know, a lot of the cases we're dealing with in not just Nigeria, frankly, I must say in other parts of the world as well, is as if we are believed in a lie. People actually believe that, people just don't believe that people walk the talk. And yet, in my experience, and that's what I think you try very hard to point out in the book, Babs, whenever people try this thing, it works. The challenge for us is that why do we go for the imitation when the original is more authentic? You know, it's almost irrational. You know, when you find people who walk the talk and who bring together these qualities of, you know, competence and courage and integrity, the results are simply astounding. And I'm not surprised that Babs pursued a very illustrious and distinguished career in Shell, which, as you know, is a complex system. In Nigerian LNG, where you have to deal with government, and I happen to have been on the government side, by the way, and he still managed to not only impress me, but to work very well with me, and actually paved the way for the gentleman who took over from him, Tony Atta, because I can tell you that he still enjoys a lot of your goodwill. So well done, Babs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelema. Any last words before I move on to Mr. Baye?
I mean, the last word would be, again, congratulations. I hope that people get to read the book, and I hope that we are persuaded. I am persuaded that, like, you know, we should practice those qualities, and it will transform not just our companies, but even our nation, and even maybe the continent of Africa.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Nelema. Very, very grateful for your presence and your kind words as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now bring on Mr. Clem Baye. Mr. Baye, are you online?
Yes, I am online, Babs.
Okay. I will leave Mr. Baye to introduce how he met me, but I will just mention to everyone that he goes way back to my father, actually, but I will leave him to describe the first question on Mr. Baye, which is, how did you get to know Mr. Babson Omotowa, and any comments about him as well?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm sorry if my background is not as polished as that of our former minister or that of Babs, but what I'd like to say is that Babs' father was my teacher. But when I say teacher, it does not really quite say it. Now I look back on my life and say, he was actually my mentor at a time when I didn't know the word mentor. I was in high school, and he appointed me food prefect. Now, those types of jobs are the types of appointments that when you get, people think that you will behave in a certain way. You will cut corners with the contractors, and you will be in hock with the food supplier to the high school. And anyway, you do certain things that we normally just accept as if it's supposed to be the Nigerian way. But because I was working with the late Mr. J.T. Omotowa, who was my history teacher, and a very respected person, calm, quiet, but very firm. When I say firm, I wish I could underline FIRM and put it in huge letters, firm about everything. You start seeing the world in a different thing. What I think that I learned from his father, which I believe he passed on to his son, is the fact that really they take you into the mainstream. That is, they mainstream you into what life is, what you are supposed to do, how you are supposed to behave, how you're supposed to act in when you are under pressure. Now, I can say all this with the benefit of hindsight. At times, I used to wonder that how come I never became so friendly with the food contractor, and because he was from my town, I could have been visiting him during the holiday. Maybe he would give me a gift, but it never even occurred to me. I never even had any relationship with the gentleman concerned. Why? Because I was dealing with Mr. Omotowa, who was vice principal, and the path that he followed, I simply followed that path. With the greatest respect, my dad, of course, was a school teacher, and I learned a lot from him. But it was through Mr. J.T. Omotowa that I started putting into practice certain things that I absorbed unconsciously and said, this is the way to do things. And it has been my life pattern I met him over 50 years ago. So exactly, and I still follow the same pattern under God.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bai. It's indeed some deep history, and I think very interesting to hear some of those stories when I was probably still in my early years, I'm sure. Thank you. The next question really was to ask your view about what you found interesting when you read the book. What interested you? What was the most interest for you?
Okay, what I found interesting, I needed to have added something from my previous, speech, that I got in touch with Babs. I wrote him a letter and said, "Are you the son of a gentleman who taught me, who, all the works?" And he responded and said, yes, he was. And that's how Babs and I became close. So I thought I needed to put that gap, that bridge. I need to bridge that information. Now, what did I find interesting about the book? For me, I had listed a number of things, and you would have to interrupt me if I get too excited and I'm getting out of my time limit. I had listed competence, conviction, courage, character, and connection. Now, what do I mean by competence? I found it interesting that the job you were given to be in charge of inventory in Warri, if I remember correctly, you handled it so well that essentially it was that job that led you to become what you are today. And the challenge that we have in this country is that we tend to think that when I am made a minister, then I will show people that I'm a man of competence and integrity. When I become governor of the state, then that is when my real me will come out. But what you demonstrated was that the real you comes even at the bottom of the ladder. Whatever you are asked to do, that is the real you. Is an opportunity to come out. So I did see some of these aspects. Competence in how you went about trying to solve very complex issues, as said by the previous speaker. And conviction. No, this is the way to go. There's no other way to go. One of the things I learned from your late father was that a man stands by his conviction and he operates according to his conviction. And I remember there was some rockers sometime, and I got angry and I went to your late father and said I was resigning as food prefect. And he looked at me and said, Clement, go and sit down. just because people are saying all this about you, so that's why you think you want to resign. I am the one assessing you. I know what they're saying is not true. So go and sit down. I ignore your so-called appeal that you'll be allowed to resign as food prefect. And I learned a lot from that. What about the courage, just the guts to be able to, when you take a position, at times it's very difficult to say, when even people that respect you or people whom you respect start telling you that, you see, my brother, it's not like this. This is Nigeria. There's a way this thing can be compromised. You can compromise. If you compromise just once, you won't have to compromise again just to solve this problem. I was watching the news over the challenge about between the Nigeria LNG and Nigerian Maritime Authority, now called NIMASA. And I was listening to all that, and I was watching, and I was picturing your father as the person that was addressing the issues. I've never told you this. I had a picture in my mind that, this is how my mentor, because now, after a while, as an adult, I now knew what it was to be a mentor, but then I did not know the word. So I was saying to myself that, this is the way my late mentor would have handled issues like this. Character. I'm happy that we go beyond just saying integrity. We're talking of character. I think character, it not only embraces integrity. Integrity is at the core of it, but character makes it possible for you to be the next thing, which is to your connection, that you've mentored a group of people, you've mentored people in how corporate executives are supposed to behave. One of the things I used to like is that when they say old school, when they say, oh, you belong to the old school, that means that you do things meticulously, you are punctual, you act correctly, you act timeously or timely, if I can put it that way. It's a comprehensive thing. So to me, character it trumps everything. Yes, personality may be different. Some people have great personality and can wow a crowd of 10 million people and get them on their feet. But some of us don't have the capacity to do that. But we always hope, we always pray, and we always work to be men and women of character. As it is said, sow an act, sow a thought, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. So that is it about me and the various things that I read from the book. Every step that you took was reflecting the fact of courage, was reflecting the matter of character, was reflecting competence in decision making, judgment. Judgment that people take when they are in positions of power. You start learning those things when you are much younger. So I'm happy that great multinationals like Shell and the others, they know how to judge the Unilever group and the rest. They know how to quickly judge people who will have sound judgment and also sound character.
Thank you very much, sir, for all your kind words. The last question was any thoughts you have on how the book may be useful either for other leaders or for, generally, what your thoughts are on that?
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things I've said, the few times I've had opportunity to speak, I think I spoke very briefly to the Governance Institute in Nigeria, that is Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. And I lamented, and I'm sure Dr. Okenelama would buy into my point. When there was the set of Anesh Shonekom, the set of Michael Omolayole, these are elders, thank God they're still with us. The steps that they took in corporate lifestyle, Oshunkaye, Mrs. Adeleke, I think if I'm going to get her correctly, that was State and Line. There was certain expectations of them, and they did not fail. I'm sorry to say that soon after that set left, another set came, and quite a handful did not last long. And I think that the story might not be too palatable. Some lasted, but I now find it very interesting that if you look at what we call multinationals or transnational companies in Nigeria, what you see is that the bulk of the leadership is either people from Ghana, no disrespect, or from Ethiopia, or from Kenya, or other places. I'm nothing against that. But what is bothering me is that it is suggesting that we are a bit short in terms of competence, character at that level for such huge organizations in Nigeria. I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but I'm a Nigerian. I'm just speaking truthfully. I'm concerned about it. And I do believe that you've at Nigeria LNG, you've set a pattern. And if only we could imbibe some of the things that you did at Nigeria LNG, the situation will not be that dire, if I can put it that way.
Thank you very, very much for your wise words, sir. Any last comments before we move on?
That's just it. Essentially the points about how one of the things that I like is that you've mentored a group of people, and that's the connection that I look at, that perhaps with the greatest respect to that golden generation, maybe the mentoring needed to have been slightly better, or maybe issues of their successors, the judgment maybe needed to be better. This I have enormous respect for, so I'm not criticizing them, but as somebody who observes things, at least we can say what the challenge has been. And I'd like to believe that that challenge should be taken up, and reading your book will be one of the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Bai. It's a really honor to have you join us. Thank you very, very much. All right, we'll move on to the next section. I think after this section, which is about reading of the book excerpt by myself, the next step after that will be an open general questions and comments, if there are. I would encourage, if you have any, you might type some of them. I will hope I can be multitasking. This was supposed to be myself and Alison doing this, but Alison unfortunately stepped out. Some reason she got locked out of it. So I might have to double manage both activities. But I will try and do that. So if you type questions, if you have them, or comments, I've seen one or two, but I will try and keep an eye on that. But maybe before I go on, I know Pamela was planning to be here, although it will be 2 a.m. her time. We couldn't hear her message. Just to check, Pamela, whether you're online and whether you want to say anything in Australia. I know it's around 2 a.m. your time. Pamela, if you are on.
Good morning, Babs. I won't put on the screen because I'm in bed.
Go on, Pamela, if you have,
me?
if you want to just reflect on the reflections
Hello?
you had in your. Pamela, can you hear us?
I'm hearing, it's very faint for some reason. It's gone very faint. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you clear. If you can, just go ahead, say a few words.
Well, thanks very much. As I said, it's pitch black. It's the middle of the night. But I was enjoying listening to the comments of the previous speakers. Yeah, as I said in my recorded video message, I got to know you relatively briefly during around about 2005-06 in Nigeria, when we worked together with Anne on a CSR project. But I found that in reading your book that the things that had sort of been outstanding to me through our encounter came out very strongly in the book, particularly honesty, integrity, and the courage to make decisions and make a difference in the way in which you had analysed and worked out. And so I was very delighted to read your book. I think it's a barrel full of yarns, very interesting. Really hearing about your background was enjoyable, and I found the book a terrific read. And I think you've asked the same questions to the other people. The impact of the book, I think, can really be in demonstrating to others, not just to Nigerians, but to foreigners who are coming into Nigeria, and indeed anybody going into a leadership role, about the need to have that moral compass, and how important that courage, to really stay true to your values is in making a difference. And I think you've done a terrific job with the book, Babs, at making the case for honesty, integrity in working in a very challenging environment, where pressures to behave, to perhaps cross a line, can be very great at times and come in all sorts of unexpected ways. So I think it's a really significant contribution to helping people understand what it takes to navigate that kind of environment. So just want to offer you my heartiest congratulations, Babs, and delighted to be with you from Western Australia.
Thank you very, very much, Pamela. I know it's around 3 a.m. your time, and it's actually very kind of you to stay up this late just to be part of this. So I really, really appreciate your presence and your comments. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to have Alison join back. She's been trying, but for some reason, and a lot of people have been trying. I don't know how it happened. There seems to be a limit on the number that can be allowed into this particular meeting. I think it set a limit of 100. So quite a lot of people are trying to come in, and unfortunately, they are not able to join. And Pamela and Alison is also one of them. So unfortunately, I can have her back in. The next was supposed to be a reading of a book excerpt by myself, but looking at the time, I think I will probably skip that. And rather than do that, I would see if there are questions or comments that I can respond to. But I will also just want to recognize that also on the call are quite a number of people. We have people from all over the world, from the UK, from Netherlands, from Australia, from Bahrain, from USA, from Ghana, from several countries. I have a lot of colleagues from Shell who are on the line. I have colleagues from NLNG on the line, colleagues from Monserrado on the line, colleagues from CIPS on the line, quite a lot of people. But I also have a dear friend of mine, the former governor of Kwara State, Alhaji Abdul Fattah Ahmed, who's also on the line. So just want to appreciate everyone. I can't call the name of everyone, but just to say that I appreciate everyone who's on the call. I will be looking out for questions. I hope I can multitask. If I can't, my apologies. But one of the first questions I can take was about what was the motivation for writing the book, was one of the questions I see. I think in terms of the motivation, I think there were probably 2 or 3 things. While I was growing up, I think, of course, telling stories was one of the ways in which we learned. And I got told quite a lot of stories. in Nigeria at that time, we used to have stories, tales by moonlight, if you call it that. And elders used to tell younger ones lots of stories, and from there we learned quite a lot. So I've always been a big fan of using stories to teach and coach. And having been a teacher myself, I think Mr. Baye did explain that my father was a teacher, and my first job as well was as a teacher. The teaching and seeing the transformation of human beings, young children come to school, and after a few years, when they come, they know little or nothing, but a few years after, they come out really more knowledgeable and they go on to do great things. And I've always loved to see that transformation of people. So, even in Shell, my best job was the jobs in which I had an opportunity to coach and mentor younger ones. And I find that sharing experiences, sharing stories, sharing failures, successes, sharing some of the characteristics that one learns was a great way of helping others not to make the mistakes that one may have made, but also to understand some of the things that may have worked as well. And I think Dr. Enelama did say also rightly earlier that there are not many stories that are told by Nigerian who have gone through corporate ladder and attained senior roles. Not many people have written their stories for others to learn. So I have also always felt that that was very important. I had always encouraged a lot of those who were ahead of me to write stories, but I'm sure many of them will still write if they have not written. So of course I had to preach I had to do what I was preaching myself. And so writing the book for me was one. I think a key leadership responsibility is to write story or to share knowledge, share experiences. And it was a great way to help younger ones to be able to learn. Help also organizations that may not understand how to work in difficult countries, some of what it takes and what I found useful in those experiences. So that was my motivation for writing the book. Another question that's coming was, what will you like readers to take away from this book, aside the things about your character? I think the first thing I would hope people can take away is indeed, that apart from saying character matters, one of the things that I also found, I mean, there were many things in it, but one of the things I learned from my mother was about continuous development. My mother, while I was growing up, was when she went through the university. She did a master's program and actually completed her PhD while in her 50s. So I learned from her continuous education. And that was one thing that also stayed with me throughout my career as well. The notion that you always need to aim to learn more. You cannot sit on your oars. No matter how good you think you are, you need to learn more. And that for me meant that I always look for opportunities to learn. I always look for opportunities to move out of my comfort zone and go into places that are uncomfortable, because it's only when you're uncomfortable that you will learn. And either the times I went to the UK to work in the North Sea, they called us expatriates then if you leave Nigeria to go and work in the UK. But of course, as a Nigerian, I wasn't an expatriate. I didn't have any expertise that I was bringing. So I had to really learn. And, that was very key. And the ability to learn helped me. At some point, I decided to move away from the inventory management storeroom where I started from, as Mr. Baye had said. I decided to find ways to move into production, to go and understand and learn that. And fortunately, Shell was such a company that it provided me that opportunity to spend some time working in the production assets and actually running as an operations manager for a production asset. So, continuous learning, I would say, is one of the other things I think was very important in the book that really makes a difference, apart from character, of course. And I think the other thing I would then mention as well is, that we always need to think of ourselves as the change. Will be the other thing I would mention, apart from character and learning, was we always have to think of ourselves as the change that we are looking for. Part of the reason why, I took on some of the characteristics I took on was while growing up in Nigeria, I had identified or I had seen that there were many companies that had fallen apart. Nigerian Airways, the shipping line, iron and steel companies, they all had collapsed. And I just was struck by how such big organizations collapsed. And when I studied a lot about this sort of companies, things like integrity was probably a gap area. Things like planning was a gap area. Things about the courage to drive best practices were things that are gap areas. And so I saw these sort of gaps, and I thought, for us to make a difference, we must be those change that we are looking for. And I then decided right from the word go that I was going to inculcate those habits. Fortunate for me, as Mr. Baye said, my father already had some of those. Integrity was uppermost for him. So that for me was something I just learned from him. But I took on a lot of the other characteristics so as to be the change that I think we all look for. And if we can be a difference, then the country can be a difference. But if in our own small area we are not a difference, then it can be more difficult to then see the country go where we want it to go. So thanks for the question. Another question was, reflecting on your past, if there's one more thing you would have done, what would that have been? I think, I would have probably spend more time even beyond places where I worked to coach and mentor younger ones. I think for me, the role of a leader is more about how you can inspire younger ones to achieve, more than their potentials. And I did spend time on that within companies that I worked and a bit around where I worked. But I think I would have wanted to have done more. And of course, now that I am retired, I have more opportunities to do that. And so part of it is what this book is about. And part of it is, a number of engagements and coaching sessions that I have lined up over the next few months that I will be getting into to spend more time to really coach and mentor younger ones. So, that I think will be one thing I would have wanted to do more of if I had opportunity to do something different. Another question was, you've achieved so much and been an inspiration to many. What surprised you about yourself as you were writing the book? I think actually what surprised me more would not be about myself when I was writing the book, because I had to do a bit of review and I spoke to people to write the book. What surprised me most was what I learned more about my parents than I knew. I think, when I spoke to, people like Mr. Baye, and he described to me some of the experiences he had with my father, it really, brought home to me quite a lot of things that I didn't know, because of course I was quite young then and I didn't know that. But more importantly, as I came to understand even a lot of my father's upbringing, he actually grew up in the remote part of Kogi State. His father was a farmer. You read it in the book. And so he grew up in the farm. He actually, after primary school, his father, that's my grandfather, stopped paying his school fees. My grandfather could only pay school fees of few of his children to primary school. So my father had to use farming to train himself through secondary school. So he either farmed on his own farm or he worked on the farm of others. And, he then subsequently passed his secondary school through this hard work and was fortunate to get a scholarship to go to Forabe College in Sierra Leone, which he successfully completed, and then got another scholarship to go to University of Durham in the UK. So from such a rural background with such a very hard life of farming, to train himself through school and achieve what he then finally achieved, really humbled me a lot. I hadn't known that. He hadn't described those stories to me in the way I came to find out when I was trying to write the story. So really, it puts into perspective that, whatever I think I have achieved is actually nothing when you think about what he had achieved. So I think the humility that came out for me from that story was also one of the key things I learned as I was writing the story. So it wasn't anything about me that I learned, but it was a lot more about others. Even my mother, what I learned more about her, I think made a big, big difference. Another question was, how did you deal with a time, if any, where you fell short of any of your core values? It's a difficult one to answer. I think when you read the book, you will find some of the very difficult times in the core values, and some of them were quite difficult. Some were I had to, in some cases, say no to government officials at the highest level. Some may remember the bailout story, where I had to say no to a sitting government who wanted to collect $2.1 billion from us 6 months before it was due. And I just insisted, and despite that, the act that I'd be removed as CEO, which you will read in the book, I just said we were going to do the right thing. Luckily, the board and the directors, the shareholders, supported me and did not go along with the request to remove me. But those were really when the core values were being put to test. Another story when it was really put to test was when in Lagos, in one of the conferences I had attended, that was made by a contractor, an expatriate contractor. And, he came to my room. I thought he had some business to discuss about his operations. But he, after, just chit chats, he left, he wanted to leave an envelope on my table. And when I opened it, I found it was a wad of $100 bills. And I asked him, why are you doing this? You're an expatriate, you should know better. The ABC policies of the company are very clear. Why would you do that? And so I returned this to him and I reported this to my bosses. And investigations were done. You read some of it in the story. But even when it's only me and him in the room, and as they say, even when you are alone, your core values should still guide you. So I will say I really struggle to say a time when I would not be able to hold to my core values. If you cannot hold to your core values, then they were never your core values. If they were your core values, you will always hold to them. So a few other questions, but I think we have 2 more minutes to go. I don't intend to hold us longer. Unfortunately, that I couldn't get Alison back in, so my apologies that this may not have been as smooth as it should have been. There were questions about, did you any time you fear for your life and all of that? Former minister's parents were kidnapped and all of that. Look, it's... I wasn't reckless, I tried to go around, with necessary security. I also didn't expose myself. I'm not one that exposes myself in public places. I avoided quite a lot of travels. But yeah, we carry risk as individuals. If you want to do the right thing, it comes with risk. You have to try and minimize minimize your own exposure. And more importantly, pray to God as well. I think God is the one that protects. there is no other protection that you can have than God. And if God says you will be fine, then you will be fine, no matter what evil may have been plotted against you. All right, I think we're at the bank of time, so sorry I can't answer all the questions. I will have to bring this to an end. And just to thank everyone for the time you have spent. Your hour is most appreciated. And Alison would have asked all of us to give a toast, but she's not in the room. But I think, wherever you are, if you are able to toast to this book, and you can feel free after this, we'll be able to interact, email or WhatsApp messages. But thank you very, very much to everyone, and wish you all the best. The book itself, the e-Kindle, the Kindle version was out today. The actual book itself, the paper copy, will be out tomorrow. Some who have ordered, I think online, many have in the chat told me they already ordered, they've read the books, and they're all excited about it. So I wish you all the best when you read the book. But I think we now have to bring the session to a close. So thank you very much, Mr. Clement Baye. Thank you very much, Dr. Enelama. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Fattah Ahmed. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of this.